Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of NHLN Opinion Plus, a weekly series airing every Friday. This is a space for our opinions where we talk about current events and questions the Latino community is curious about. Today, we are joined by Tim Horgan, Executive Director of World Affairs Council of New Hampshire. Welcome, Tim. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. How are you doing? How are you doing today?
Not too bad. A little gray out there, but it's all good. We're excited to be having this conversation. So that's a good way to start the week off.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I wanted to get started and to make sure that you're all comfortable. Any questions before we begin?
No, just really interested to see what your audience is interested in hearing from us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we'll just dive in, and we just wanted to ask, just to start off, how has the pandemic impacted the work that you've been doing within the role that you have within World Affairs in New Hampshire?
Sure. So the pandemic has completely changed the way in which our organization functions and runs and presents our programs. We have three different sort of overarching programs that we run. That's our speakers programs, which includes our Global in the Granite State podcast. It also includes international visitor exchanges with the U.S. Department of State, as well as a academic high school global trivia challenge. All of those programs were based on in-person interactions, in-person programming. And when the pandemic hit, we had to quickly change and modify the way in which we presented those programs in order to bring them online. So now, as of today, all of our speakers programs are online. We are starting to get back to some in-person hybrid events, but it's been a really great opportunity for the organization to expand our audiences. So now we have people who have viewed our programs from 35 different states and 80 different countries. In the past, people had to be in person at the event, be able to get to that event. And so it was not as inclusive as we could have been. Now being able to have people watch from the comfort of their own home or to watch the recording of our event really opens us up to a much wider audience and engages people in a new and different way, which has been really beneficial to the organization and to our global community. Similarly, with the international visitor exchanges, we have not been able to host many of them in person in the past 2 years almost now. So that's been a big challenge, is how do we build these connections, these relationships that are designed to help strengthen U.S. global presence and U.S. International relations in a way that still feels authentic online, but competes with those challenges. And so we've done a number of things there to continue to be able to engage people in these programs and to provide them opportunities to make these international connections, share best practices, build relationships, and just sort of continue to better understand the world. So those have been brought online. Our Academic WorldQuest has been brought online. And while this has been a great opportunity to expand the programs and expand the audience that we reach, we are very excited to get back to in-person programming when it is safe, while still retaining the important and beneficial aspects of virtual programming.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for answering that. And so, Tim, I'm just curious for clarification. So, since the pandemic, you said that you've had to stop kind of like inviting foreign exchange students to the cities of New Hampshire. So these foreign exchange programs, are they mostly focused on the educational system? Like, do you have foreign exchange students that stay with a visiting family within a local high school, or go to the local community colleges or universities? Is this all for educational purposes, or could foreign exchange students also come without the purposes of education?
So this program, the International Visitor Leadership Program, which is run through the U.S. Department of State, is actually for up-and-coming leaders, working professionals, to come on a 3-week study tour of the U.S. to share best practices in their professional field, as well as to have the follow-on benefits of meeting Americans and finding out what the US is really like. We program on a wide range of topics. Not only do we do probably about 40% of our programs in a typical year being focused on government accountability, transparency, best practices in sort of administration of government. We also see a lot of programs on women's empowerment, on youth civic engagement, and on judicial reform. We also try to get the sort of more fun, crazy one-off programs. One of my favorite having been a group of animation and audiovisual design studio directors from Uruguay many years ago that we hosted. Had a lot of fun with them. We had a group from Oman come to talk about road safety and management, and found out that New Hampshire has 4 nonprofits that are working in that space specifically. And the most fun we had with them was taking them to the Manchester Fire Department to see how they respond to a road accident. And they pulled out all of their hydraulic tools like the jaws of life and cut apart a car for our group so that they could see how these responses really happen. So really what we're looking for in these programs, whether they're virtual or in person, is to build connections between working professionals so that they can share best practices. We really do view this as a two-way exchange. We want people to have the opportunity to share what works in their country, as well as learn about what works here, because we know that in the US, we do not have all of the answers. We are not the only people who do things well. And so the people here in New Hampshire who get to meet with these visitors also get to pick their brains about what works for them and come up with new potential ideas to make their work better and stronger. So overall, we have a wide range of topics that we program on. We usually see around 40 to 50 groups come to New Hampshire in a given year, and they tend to meet with around 400 to 500 people across the state and have these really in-depth, important conversations.
Very interesting. So with that, inviting these different groups and just understanding what can they bring from their country to the US, and also what can we from the US, what can we get from them? Can you explain the events that you've been putting on, such as the International Exchange Program or the Academic WorldQuest? Can you explain more of how do you use these programs to foster a community where both worlds can learn from each other and create some form of culture diffusion while still creating an inclusive environment for foreign exchange students, as spending time within a country that is not of their own is very difficult in many different ways?
Sure. So we do try and engage a diverse audience. We can and will do better in the future in that. Our speakers programs really focus on a wide range of topics, and being a nonpartisan nonprofit organization, we really do view ourselves as the platform for people to have these important international discussions. So those range in topics from climate change to national security to human rights, and anything really in between that touches on international affairs. We want people to be able to access these programs easily so that they can learn from experts. In this day and age, it's difficult to know who to trust, and we're the ones who can do that vetting for you in advance so that you know that the person you're hearing from, while they may come from a certain perspective or background, they have the knowledge and expertise to talk coherently and effectively about that topic. Our Academic WorldQuest program, we had a lot of fun figuring out a way to bring that online that maintains the fun atmosphere of being in person, and really made it an effective and fair way for students to compete. There was a lot of work that went into that. This year, because of it being virtual, we were able to engage high schools from across New England. I think we had about 120 students from 8 or 9 different states. We did go outside of New England to get a couple of students involved. And it was a lot of fun. So we had a great time really trying to engage a diverse audience there. And we're excited, as I keep saying, to bring that back to in-person in 2022.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So it seems like that with the WorldQuest, it's like a great way to bring people of all different backgrounds to just look at what the world looks like from from a global perspective. So with that, can you kind of explain more on what are the biggest challenges with assisting underrepresented groups such as Latinx, Black, and other underserved and disadvantaged communities within the communities that you work with?
Sure. So, of course, we know there are a lot of challenges to participation in our programs. We're very grateful that we have now the opportunity and the ability to put our events out online, so that people who are not available at the time in which the program is happening can watch the recording, can still engage with these important discussions, and get the information that they need in order to make better choices when it comes to discussions on international affairs, whether that's when they go to the voting booth and choose who our representatives are going to be, what issues they think are going to be important and need to be tackled around the world. And, of course, we want to find ways in which we can outreach and reach people. I'm very appreciative of the opportunity here today to talk to people who may not have heard about the World Affairs Council of New Hampshire before. We are a small nonprofit, but we try to engage as many people as we can. And these types of opportunities to get in front of new audiences are a great way for us to do that. So we want to be sure that people know and understand that we are a open and welcoming organization. We want to include as many diverse perspectives and voices as we can. Of course, being a internationally focused organization, we understand the benefits that diversity can bring, and we hope that more and more people continue to engage with our various programs.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are just because diversity is the first step, and inclusivity is kind of the hardest obstacle that a lot of communities tend to lack and struggle with. So, kind of going off of the perspective of inclusivity within the events of 2020, that with the social injustice that we've seen within the news and in the media, and how it's shown that a lot of communities really do lack the understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusivity. Just how do you think the events of last year really impacted the work that you do as a nonprofit? Because international presence, that's diversity within itself, and just the events that happened last year really did explain that there's a lot of issues that we have to resolve. So how did the events of last year really impacted the work that you do with serving people that are not from the United States and that are not Caucasian to like impact the importance of diversity and inclusivity?
Sure. So, of course, we were very concerned to see these challenges and these issues, as everyone was, to what was going on here in the U.S., as well as what's going on around the world. One of the really interesting things that I was able to do last year was, as part of our Global in the Granite State podcast, was talk to two experts, one former Foreign Service officer and one Yale University professor, who have done research into the Black Lives Matter movement around the world, and how we saw such a large outpouring of support around the world. As I'm sure many people remember seeing, there were protests for Black Lives Matter in Great Britain, in many countries around the world. And so being able to bring those kind of conversations to light when they are not necessarily focused on by mainstream media. We understand there's a lot going on around the world, and it's hard to cram it all into a 30-minute program every night. And so we want to be the people who can bring to light some of these issues and opportunities for discussions on diversity, equity, inclusion around the world. We are not the experts, but we hope to be able to bring these conversations and people who are experts in these areas to the state and to our audiences.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tim. And I think we're about reaching time. Do you like to say anything to our audience? Any programs or resources that you think our audience should know before we depart?
Sure. So we again are hopeful that people will engage with our programs. One of the most fun and interesting ways to do that is when we are able to bring in-person exchange participants back to the US and to the state, is to host a dinner for these groups. And that can be as fancy as a, $1 million home in Bedford, New Hampshire, or as simple as the two AmeriCorps members who host in their small apartment. We really want to make this a opportunity for our visitors to meet as many people and show them the diversity that is here in the state. Many people, of course, do not think of New Hampshire as a very diverse state, but there are many pockets here that we can engage and show the groups that America is not one big homogeneous area, but truly that melting pot that is such a benefit to our country.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for talking with us, Tim, on this week's NHLN Opinion Plus.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And join us again for another episode in 2 weeks. For more information about our discussion today, check out our website at nhllatinonews.com. Follow us on Twitter at NHLatinoNews and our Instagram at NH_Latino News. I'm Bron Zapata with the NHLN Opinion Plus, and we'll see you next time.